Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Amanda Jenkins for Crew New York, and today I'm going to be going over a look that we created for the recent Academy campaign that was shot in January. Kind of losing track here because I'm still stuck in my house. So this is going to be a bob with slight graduation. It's going to have a really cute heavy fringe. The inspiration was Studio 54, having a feeling, now not completely copying, but a feeling. And that's something that I'll talk a little bit about more as I get into the shape. But what you're going to need is you're going to need your shears, a comb, your water bottle. I'm going to be using our Rejuvenating Moisture Mist. And then you'll need about about 6 clips. I'm a bit of a clip junkie, so if you are as well, 6 clips. Before we get started, we have to section. So sectioning is one of my favorite things to do. It's also one of the most important parts of your haircut, I believe, because it's the roadmap to the end result and what you would like to achieve. And if you don't already pre-section, I suggest that you start trying, because if you kind of get lost, and a lot of us hairdressers do. I mean, I'm the biggest person that if there's something going on around me, I'm like, ooh, what's happening? Something shiny. But when I get back into it, I have my map, and I still know exactly where I was going and what I was going to do. Now, it's also good because sometimes if you start to get into your haircut and you see that it's not really working out, that's fine. Meaning you need to adjust your sectioning a little bit. That's fine, but you still have an end result, and you have the direction that you were going. So again, I just rambled a little bit, but if you don't practice pre-sectioning, I definitely recommend doing it. Let me explain what I've done here. Starting with a profile parting from forehead down to the nape, that's how I start every single haircut. From there, I start to section out my panels in which I'm going to be working. If there's going to be a fringe, I typically section out the fringe area first. So in this instance, I worked from the top of the head, where the comb left the head, where it starts to round out, and I brought 2 diagonal sections down to about the corner of the eyebrow. I want the fringe to kind of close off right after her eyebrow, because that feeling of the Studio 54, late 70s, everything was very closed off right after the eye. So that's why I sectioned that there. It's gonna be quite heavy. And then from there, I worked where the comb left the head in the back. So I had my comb flat on the head where the head started to round. I sectioned diagonal sections to about the top of the ear on each side. And then from there, I went to basically the top of the crown, section diagonal forward, and then I was left with this middle panel. And this middle panel, I took a section to right behind the ear, and I clipped out the front. So this is going to be my sides, and then I clipped out the 2 panels here. For the process of filming, I'm going to be working on one side and then the next. And the reason, again, this is just because I'm filming myself, and so that's why. In the salon, I would work, especially with this technique, I would work both sides at the same time as I was working up the back panel. Once the back got completely finished, then I would work one full side and then the other full side. So what I'm going to start doing is, you see that I've created a slight diagonal section, slight diagonal forward section. And I'm going to create graduation, but it's not going to be your typical graduated bob. So the graduation for graduated bob sits right here. But a bob with graduation looks more like a bob from a distance with the round edge cut off, okay? So it's very slight, and it's almost like a reverse graduation if you think about it. Like if this is graduation, I'm actually just going to be working this as my graduation. So it's very slight, and it basically just makes it create more of a triangular shape and a heavy triangular shape at the perimeter. Okay, so I'm going to come through and I'm going to work in my comb for the first section. And as I start to take these sections down, then I'm going to work elevating with my fingers and pulling it out this way. My fingers will always mimic my sections, and my sections will start to get a little bit more on a diagonal as I get in through this area here. And then when I come around to the sides, I'll get a little bit more on the slight diagonal again because I'll be creating the outline. So let's get into it. Putting my comb at the base of my section every single time. Now, if I was working on a client, I would be cutting this on the neck, on the skin. But because it's a bit hard to work with plastic, so I'm cutting it in the comb. Is it wrong to cut it in the comb when you're working on a client? No, not at all. And depending on the outcome that I'm looking for, sometimes I do it in the comb, sometimes I do it on in my fingers. So it really just depends. I'm going to continue to work up. Now I'm going to work in my fingers because I've created my outline. Now I have to start to slightly graduate as I work up. Now my fingers will always mimic my section. So my fingers are on a slight diagonal right now. And if I look, I can see my guide underneath my section. I'm going to continue the same exact way as I work all the way up my back section. So when the section starts to get too wide, it's hard for me to control. So I'm going to start to subdivide each section. So that allows me to control the hair much easier. So I need those clips on hand. Okay, so now I'm, elevating again. I can see my guide. Combing from the base of my section. Keeping that graduation very low. So the graduation is just moving out here as opposed to really sitting it in. My last section, combing straight down from each section. So you can see that my comb is on a diagonal because it's following my section. Okay, time to move to this side. Okay, so for the sides, right now this whole panel is just going to be worked for our perimeter. So the elevation will be 0 and the distribution will be at natural fall. So we're just creating our perimeter line. Now when it comes to the ears, everybody's always freaking out about the ears, that they're going to create a hole. So typically people do a lot of pressing, and then at the end what that does is that creates this little triangular piece that you have to go in at the end of your haircut and detail out. So what I like to do, and I typically don't ever have to go back through and detail out that little triangular piece, and I don't have a skip for the ear area. What I do is I put my comb at the base of my section and I comb out from the head, around the ear, and then down. Okay? I never do this. And when I stopped doing that, it really made my cuts a lot nicer, a lot more precise, and I was getting it right from the beginning, and I didn't have to go back through at the end. One less thing I had to do. So let's do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so the perimeter is officially done. Now what we want to do is we want to go back through these panels here, and we want to start to continue. Well, we want to continue our graduation. Okay, so I'm going to work diagonal sections, continuing, and just coming through and continuing that graduation out. So really expanding that graduation out. And the reason I did it this way is because there's control. I have control of the perimeter, and it's really easy for me to move from panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4. A lot of times people get lost as they start to move up past the round of the head. This is when people start to go on autopilot when it comes to bobs. And I feel like when you break it up this way, it makes you stay in the game. It makes you really continue to focus. So let's go through, wet her down if you need to add a little bit more moisture, and let's get to it. Continuing with the same sectioning, meaning diagonal forward, but now I'm coming all the way from the back into the front hairline. Now I'm going to subdivide because, again, it's just easier for me to control the hair and to stay on the right track in which I was going. So I'll subdivide here. It creates a softer shape as well when you subdivide. Again, putting my comb on the base of my section. And now I'm just pulling out. I see my guide, it's very clear. My fingers are mimicking my section. As the head starts to round, I'm in the side area, and you can see that my fingers are pointing towards the jaw. Okay? I absolutely love doing graduation in any form, whether it be a classic graduated bob, any type of reverse graduation. It's so gratifying to me to do graduation. Now, ask Amanda 25 years ago her thoughts on graduation, and anybody that worked with me back then knows that it was my absolute nemesis. I would go home crying after my education nights with graduation being on the books. Oh, it was awful. But I made it something that I loved, and that was important to me. Anything that I can't do, I try to just like learn it and learn it and learn it until I love it. There's quite a few things that I do now that when I started out in hairdressing, I absolutely hated. And it's really funny how it kind of comes full circle. So just continuing on, you can see that I'm working these diagonal sections. There's not a lot of hair because that panel is quite small, okay? But I'm bringing it all the way forward so that there is a really nice transition from the back to the front. Back is complete, and now we're going to work on our top two panels. And the way that we're going to work the panels are in the same manner, basically, that we've been doing the entire time. So just going to pivot off the crown area, going forward. You have about 2, maybe 3 sections, depending on the density of your client. So bringing that hair all the way out, like this is where our graduation has brought us to. Okay, so all the way out, and you're just going to follow it in the exact same manner that you've been doing the entire time. Do not forget that you are combing from the base of your section. So don't do this. Don't just over direct it all the way back, okay? Keep it controlled, just like you're doing your typical bob, graduated bob. Subdivide if you need to. Comb it on a diagonal from the base of the section. And we are almost done with this haircut. So the shape is done, and I'm really excited about how it's turned out. Again, my graduation in any form is one of my loves. So in the salon, and I actually did this on my model at the shoot, I put the product in before I started cutting the fringe, and the reason for that is so that it can start to dry in the shape that I want it to do, so it's going to take less time for me at the end of the haircut. The client can also see how the hair is drying on its own, and so she will get excited about it. And that's something that, as a hairstylist, I like my clients to be able to let their hair air dry. For me, that's important, and my clients like that. They also enjoy that they can just, they can style it however they want, but they don't have to. All they have to do is put some product in it and let it dry, and it's good. I'm going to apply the Marine Thickening Balm. I'm going to do that first because in the shoot, you could see that it was an expanded shape. And that whole feeling of the Studio 54, the expansion with the texture, the Marine Thickening Balm is the best product to use for that. If you haven't tried it, definitely try it. It's a fan favorite. So you're going to apply that first. It's going to get to the hair shaft, and it will plump from the inside out. So from here, I'm going to apply our defining styling potion. And so what that's going to do is that's going to help encourage the curl. It's going to add a ton of shine to the hair, but not a greasy shine. It's going to have a medium hold, so it'll help me with the expansion at the end when I'm really trying to style out the shape. And that's actually great for your clients that have kind of wavy hair, as my model does here. Her hair is pretty wavy, right? But if you put that product in and scrunch it, you can actually get a lot more curl out of it than you think, and clients are kind of blown behind. So those two products together is really going to help create that look that I did for the shoot. And now I'm going to go through and cut the fringe in. Okay, so to cut the fringe, basically what we're going to do is we're just going to cut it pretty square we're gonna work basically at the bridge of her nose, okay? So combing it straight down, we're gonna point cut. So I have my fingers on the bridge of her nose, and I'm really aggressively going through and point cutting. And just keep working that first panel, that first section, until you get it to the exact length that you want. Now I can move on in the same manner, working all the way up. I've got about 3 more sections to do in the fringe, and then I'll be done. I'm slightly elevating as I cut. Create a little graduation within the fringe as well. Okay, so the shape is complete, and if she was my client, she would be able to air dry with this product and then shake it out once it's dry. And I always teach my clients how to do that properly. In the salon, I always dry all of my clients, and nobody leaves with wet hair. So I would dry her a bit on the flatter side and expand it out a bit. I'm going to expand it out a little bit more, just like I did on the shoot, but just so that you're aware, commercially, I would expand it a little bit, but it wouldn't be this dramatic. But I will be drying it with my hands, and that's how I would dry it in the salon. So meaning, I'm going to use my hands as a diffuser. I do use a soft diffuser sometimes, or I'll use a hard diffuser. It really depends on the client and the texture and what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, so I'm really happy with the shape and how it's turned out. I'm just going to go through and enhance a little bit of the waves. That's what I did on the shoot. And also with the fringe area, when I was drying it, I took my comb in the dryer and I just had the comb follow the dryer, so it became really flat here. But I don't want a super straight, almost like broom-like fringe. So I'm going to go through right where the light is reflecting, right here, and just put a little bit of texture in there. Nothing much, but when you're on a shoot, that little detail makes all the difference in the world. So just going to come through with my iron and just press in a few bits. I'll just follow the way that the wave is going, and that'll just add a little bit of definition. I can rake it out with my fingers if I wanted to, and then we'll be finished. So styling Bob on my hands. Dry texture spray really is great when you're working on set, because it's it's a nice hybrid between a working spray and a dry shampoo. So you can really play with your shapes, and you can continue to create shapes throughout the day. Okay, so I hope you had a good time. Again, this is a bob with slight graduation, and it was inspired from the good old Studio 54 days that I never attended, but I really wish I could have. And I encourage you all to try any type of graduation. If it's a sore spot, make it not a sore spot. And that's what I did, and that's what I continue to do in my career. If I can't do something, then I work on it until I got it. So enjoy on Friday. Check out the behind the scenes video from the shoot and for this particular model. Have a great one, and I'll see you soon.